Captain Midnight.
So there's obviously a lot you can say for online media, but I think one of the most negative aspects is that it's not super uncommon to see creators with a large platform shamelessly try to financially scam their own audience. The Tonight Show, a television institution, should really be above that. Sure, you can make nuanced critiques of the way that late night talk shows have helped steer public thought over the decades. I'm sure there's a lot there. But if you're talking about allegedly trying to get the audience to buy into a speculative investment with financial ties to the host, that feels like crossing a new line. And that could be, again, allegedly, what happened in early 2022 with the segment Paris Hilton surprises Tonight Show audience members by giving them their own NFTs, which, just a few years later, I think is pretty fascinating to look back on. Especially when you dig a little deeper and realize that this infamous interview was actually the culmination of the show's odd love affair with NFTs. This wasn't even the first time the two of them talked about NFTs, and in my opinion, pushed them on the audience. Before I dive in though, I'm going to be upfront. I've never really made a video that involves a big ongoing lawsuit like this. So in late 2022, Jimmy Fallon, Paris Hilton, and a number of other celebrities had one brought against them, accusing them of fraud. There's a great PC Gamer piece from Andy Chalk about this that I'll link to in the description. In the article, Chalk writes, "The lawsuit alleges that all of the Bored Apes action over the past year was in fact a vast scheme between Yuga Labs, a highly connected Hollywood talent agency named Guy Oseary, and MoonPay, a company that purports to be a white glove service designed to help the super rich and celebrities buy NFTs, but is, in fact, according to the lawsuit, a covert way to compensate the promoter defendants without disclosing it to investors." Okay, before I go any farther, I want to say this is all alleged and not proven, and MoonPay said to CNN in regard to the lawsuit, "In our view, these claims are opportunistic and parasitic. We strongly believe that they are without merit and look forward to proving as much." As of 2025, the lawsuit against Fallon and others remains ongoing with no public resolution reported. So with all that being said, and I know this is not my usual wheelhouse, let's look at the NFT segments done by Jimmy Fallon's Tonight Show. So a lot of you were asking for one on the Paris Hilton appearance, and we'll get there later in the video, I promise. But this story predates that by more than I knew. Almost a year before that infamous interview, in April of 2021, Fallon had a segment called NFTs Fact vs. Fiction. Now on the surface, nothing wrong with this. NFTs were being discussed everywhere in 2021. As a topical talk show, it makes sense that The Tonight Show would want to do a segment on them. Maybe something just talking about what they are, what people who love them or were selling them had to say, what the loud and highly skeptical critics had to say, wrap it up with a few jokes, and there you go, a perfectly fine talk show segment for this kind of show. You know, informational enough, but with some jokes. In fact, The Tonight Show's Twitter account seemed to position this as an explainer. But watching it, it's hard to ignore that, in my opinion, and I'm going to be saying that a lot this video, this segment feels like an ad. For one thing, you'd think an explainer of NFTs would explain, what they are. Jimmy starts by saying that there's a lot of misinformation about NFTs out there, of what kind he does not specify, but his first fact here is that NFT artwork is impossible to forge. Wow, these sound pretty great already, don't they? I think this strikes a surprisingly defensive note for an explainer video to start on, especially considering the way that NFTs were mocked at the time as basically useless JPEGs. Now, I understand they mean impossible to forge on the blockchain or whatever, but this just seems like a very uncritical note to start out on, especially without any farther context. And the fiction portion is just like pretty limp jokes. The segment continues on like this, some glowing facts about NFTs with nothing critical here at all. Hell, there's not even gambling jokes, which is like the most obvious direction to go for this kind of thing. These aren't being framed as risky, speculative investments, which, you would think would be an important aspect to at least mention to the audience. Even if you like this stuff, you have to admit that there's a lot of risk built into it. Risk that, in my opinion, is not acknowledged here at all. A pretty questionable move when you're a network TV show talking to a largely older viewer base who maybe aren't super tech savvy and might want to jump into this amazing sounding world of NFTs without understanding the risks. He mentions $431 million being in that market. But again, there's not even a joke about the possibility of losing money. So from the start, The Tonight Show had what I would call a uncritical relationship with NFTs. Were they being paid to promote them? I have no idea, and I have no evidence of that, but Jimmy sure seems to like them, with the NFT artist Beeple getting a shout out as well. And get used to him, because man does Beeple have staying power in these segments. Then in August of 2021, Fallon had Paris Hilton on to talk about her new show and NFTs for the first time. He asked her to give a basic explanation of what they are, acting like he knows nothing about them, despite already doing a segment on them. She explains what the name NFT means, and then Jimmy says he's not going to jump into the world of NFTs. I guess he changed his mind about this later. But he once again mentions Beeple, who he says is an awesome artist, and good news, Paris agrees.
I know Beeple is an artist. That's awesome.
Yeah, so awesome.
And he had maybe 300 pictures in one digital picture. I thought that was interesting, and I go, well, I can never do that.
After that, they transitioned into talking about her cooking show, which I guess was a thing on Netflix for one season in 2021. The NFT artist that they keep mentioning, Beeple, is someone I wasn't super familiar with. He makes art that looks like this, and he was apparently one of the biggest players in this space. And apparently, he went on the show in November 2021. Now, I didn't know this until I read that PC Gamer article, because the official Tonight Show YouTube channel seems to have deleted this interview entirely, or maybe they just never posted it, which seems strange. I'm not sure how common that is, but thankfully I was able to find bits and pieces of it. I'm gonna play you some of this Beeple interview, even though the version I have is very low quality, because I think it's important that you see this for yourself and decide what you think of it.
I just got my first NFT.
Oh, you did? What was it?
Through MoonPay.
Okay, there it is. There it is.
You know what I'm talking about? MoonPay, which is I'm figuring. I did my homework.
Okay.
MoonPay was like PayPal but for crypto, and I bought an ape.
Okay, yeah, Bored Apes. Yeah.
I was gonna say I bought Human One last night for $29 million.
Shut him, bro.
I could not possibly say whether this was some sort of ad. But to quote that PC Gamer piece again, the suit alleges that Fallon and Winkleman, Beeple, were in fact recruited and paid to promote MoonPay and Bored Apes during the show. Now, I have no idea if that's true, but I will say it was odd that I found this video not through the Tonight Show's YouTube channel, like I said, but on MoonPay's Twitter page, where it's proudly posted with their logo on the top and everything. So, make of that what you will. Okay, so finally we get to the interview that really captured the internet's attention in January 2022. I've already covered Jimmy's awkward interview style here in my last video on The Tonight Show, but I think it's worth going over here a little bit because it's important to how this clip was received overall. This reads on screen, at least to me, as easily the least comfortable that Paris Hilton has been on the show. They awkwardly go through her wedding at her grandfather's old estate. They advertise for an adult play place in Vegas that I kind of made fun of in my last Fallon video, but people in the comments tell me is really cool, which, hey, I guess I believe them. And then they get to what, in my opinion, reads as a pure pitch for NFTs. Jimmy starts by telling us that Paris has been named one of the 50 most influential people in the NFT space by Forbes. A well-earned honor, I am sure. Then Fallon says that the last interview they did together inspired him to buy an ape, to which Hilton says this.
I got an ape too because I saw you on the show with Beeple and you said you got a MoonPay, so I went and I copied you and did the same thing.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
This is your
mine.
ape.
Yeah,
We debuted.
it's really cool.
So yeah, just a totally organic feeling segment. Just really great stuff here. No, I will say, in my opinion, purely speculative, this feels a little off. But that's her ape. We get to see Jimmy's as well here. He shows us this guy and explains us why he picked it.
It reminded me of me a little bit because I wear striped shirts
And that goes on for a little bit. I'll spare you. This is just brutal stuff. Like maybe the lowest point in the Tonight Show's 70+ year history. I'm not sure. Like, I'm sure there's something out there that beats it. It's an old show. But this just feels shameless. And by the way, that still stands, at least to me, even if every part of this lawsuit is a parasitic lie or whatever they said. Because I don't know how you can do this many segments on NFTs, something everyone knows was used first and foremost as a speculative asset, and not once, not one time, mention the inherent risk there to your audience. They're just trying to play this off like they love the art. You know, you can't get better than Beeple and these apes. Maybe Jimmy truly did love this art and wanted to share that love with his audience. Now, I personally doubt it, but let's go with that. Even then, it would be very important to discuss how these were being used as speculative assets. And if you and the audience, break out your retirement money, have your grandkids set up a MoonPay account for you to buy one, you could maybe stand to lose some serious money. Now, I hope this didn't happen, and I doubt it did, at least in large numbers, because these segments are so bad. But it feels like something that just needs to be brought up when you're positioning yourself as our TV host buddy who just wants to share the cool new online art craze with us. So even if none of this lawsuit is true, I still despise these segments. By the way, Paris Hilton, after showing off her own collage-style NFT, which looks like shit by the way, gifts the entire audience with free NFTs. And man, I would love to see where these stand today and how many people in the audience even manage to set up an account to own them. Like, I bet these stats are very funny. So this is kind of where I thought the story ended. That they had been embarrassed by this Hilton interview online and, hung their head in shame and called it a wrap on the NFT segments. But I was wrong. Kind of. Because it turns out Fallon and company just could not help themselves and did one last interview with everyone's favorite superstar artist, Beeple. Now, in their defense here, they don't really go into NFT discussions much, but they do have Beeple make some art right on the show and give it a grand reveal.
Here's Beeple's latest piece titled Late Night Sleep. I have no idea.
And it looks like that. So there you have it. With that interview, Beeple officially made more appearances on The Tonight Show than Jackie Gleason ever did, which isn't important, but I thought was interesting. After that, as far as I can tell, The Tonight Show's NFT era was over. Paris Hilton would be back in October of 2023 to promote her new music, her partnership with a large alcohol brand, her Peacock show. Notably absent, though, was any mention of her NFT mogul status. Which is weird, right? Because we're talking about one of Forbes' 50 most influential people in the NFT space. Hard to believe that didn't come up. If I had to make a guess, I'd wager that it had something to do with the NFT market totally cratering the year before. That was probably no issue for Jimmy. He's got a big show to host after all. It doesn't seem to be a problem for Paris Hilton, who was on the show to promote tons of new stuff and, has her entire persona built around being famous for having money. But what about the people who may have bought in big after seeing these segments on The Tonight Show and then lost money? Maybe a little, maybe a lot, maybe even a life-changing amount. Well, I really hope there's not many of them out there because Fallon and Hilton definitely were not acknowledging them in this interview or in a later one in 2024. And I know, this was a long time ago now. I just felt it was worth pointing out, even if it is just speculation on my end. Anyway, I do not have NFTs to sell, but I did write a comic book, one I'm really proud of, featuring great art from Jason Piperberg, not Beeple, a word I used far more times this week than I ever expected. But yeah, it is on Kindle, it's called Binary Sea, and there is a link down below. Feel free to check it out and leave a review, and I will see you very soon with a more movie-focused video.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.